Hey, 7:15, welcome into Wingin It Wednesday, brought to you by our friends over at Service Cadillac. Hey, go see all the new Cadillacs over at Cajun Field. Let me tell you, it is like a Rob dream day to spend Friday morning over at the car show, because you get to walk around, you fondle what you want, you look at what you want to.
So you'll be over at the service tent just hanging out and drooling.
I'll actually be at the Moss Motors tent, but I'll be going around the rest of them.
So you get to see every dealer that's there.
I'm going to touch them all. So,
nice.
Just a warning to the cars right now. Just a little warning. Hey, did you see this thing, by the way, before we jump into our topics about the European-style bathrooms that could be coming to downtown Lafayette?
Am I allowed to give an opinion on this?
Go ahead. We'll let you.
No.
Well, I was about to say, your silence is opinion enough.
I understand where they're trying to go with this, because, everybody's got to go. You're made that way, right?
Yes.
But one of the arguments that was made last night was that the one that's in the traffic the parking tower,
garage,
the parking garage, was that, people feel unsafe because you can be pulled in there and hurt or assaulted, whatever.
Yeah.
But they can also do that in one of these two. I don't know. I think we just need to maybe look at some different solutions, only because of the price tag.
Yeah.
That seems like
why would you go in the bathroom when you have a perfectly good parking garage just to pee right on?
Here's what my deal is. I think that's disgusting. By the way, I was
and
glazing
true.
right over that. No comment.
I've never done that, but I'm just saying. Hey, why are you going to go? I'll tell you this.
I'm going to tell you this. It needs to be a private endeavor. We need to go and work out a partnership with a private company where we split the revenue or just charge. If you're going to $200,000.
I'll tell you, this is a European style.
I mean, honestly,
it's a European style bathroom, and it's so crazy. I never thought this would ever even come up, but I only have one memory of a European bathroom, and it was under one of the support beams of the Eiffel Tower with someone with an assault rifle standing next to me. I mean, are we going to add that now too?
I don't know. So this is a suggestion.
This is an ongoing debate. Maybe we'll have this for a future Wingin It Wednesday.
I don't know, and maybe some people can call us and tell us what the advantages would be.
$200,000 is the price tag, though.
No, I know, but think about this. Then you've got issues because people just, let's face it.
All right. We move on with our topics.
Now he's scared. He talks about peeing in public on the parking garage, but now I go into the real issue, and he's like, "Oh no!"
That's the way they are.
Welcome. What do you mean by they? Warren Caudle joins us
to mess with you.
And keeping Carol Ross's seat warm this morning. Justin Centanni, good morning.
Good morning.
Joel.
Happy to have you here. Happy. This is a pretty fun arena, Justin. Take about 4 topics, see what happens. And we spend the hour. We wing it.
All right.
How about that? And I like that neither one of you have notes today, so you really are winging it.
Yeah,
I love it.
Well, I didn't really know what we were talking about until about 3:00 this morning. So,
I found out about 5 minutes before I walked in the door.
Sick kids do things to you.
Well, you're an old pro.
Well, I was going to say, you have to cut Rob some slack because you've got 3 little people.
Sure.
And he's got 2 little people, and one of his little people, she didn't feel so hot.
Yeah, so that's why you got a 2:00 in the morning email from me. You didn't get anything from me last night. All right, so let's start with the Confederate monuments. The 3rd came down. Beauregard came down overnight last night. I did think it was just a little bit funny that it took them way longer than they thought it was supposed to.
Really?
This one was not thrown together apparently like the other ones, and so they had to bring in extra equipment. Of course, it was kind of a long situation.
They don't build things like they used to.
They just don't build things like they used to. And so what ends up happening is yesterday, passed by the House, is a bill that would send this to the voters in an area if they want a certain monument moved, especially of the Confederate type. Warren, we'll start with you on this one. What are your thoughts on this?
I have a lot of mixed emotions on this thing.
Mm-hmm.
That, first of all, that I'm going to go back and say what I've always said. My heritage is Southern. I had a great-grandfather who was wounded at Shiloh, and he was a prisoner of war with the Union Army, and he was a Confederate soldier, and he was a prisoner of war at Camp Douglas in Chicago that only 1 in 4 made it out of that place alive. And one of his brothers was killed at Shiloh. Another one of his brothers served in the Union Army, and it was typically one of those brothers against brother type.
I was about to say, talk about a house divided.
Yeah.
You know, and the one who served in the Union Army came back to Tennessee. Of course, that county bordered western Kentucky and was right across the river from Missouri. And he didn't stay there after the war. He moved to Missouri, which is where he lived the rest of his life. And, you know, you're talking about a nation who went to war with the United States of America when you talk about the Confederate States of America. And that regardless of where our sentiments lie, we're still talking about a country who went to war with the United States of America. And you go to any place, you won't find statues of Hitler. You won't find statues of people in Japan and all that. Why? Because at the end of that war, we said these things are no longer going to be allowed. You won't find Nazi flags flying in Germany. You won't find the flags of the rising sun flying in Japan. You won't find statues of, or you might, but I doubt you'll find statues of Sherman erected in Atlanta, you know, which is where I spent the first 12 years of my life. And that, you know, and the people want to sit there and holler, these are military monuments. You're damn right they're military monuments, but they're military monuments to a country who went to war with the United States of America. And I can understand the other side of it. And I also I can understand both sides. You know, I can understand the people who really get into this thing about, you know, my Confederate heritage and the daughters of the Confederacy and you know, the sons of the Confederacy and all of that stuff. And it's like I said, my great-grandfather was. And that most of my family served, you know, that were Confederates or whatever. And but still, by God, we lost. We lost. I was in Georgia in the 1950s in school after the Brown versus Board of Education, and I remember then that the big hoorah was, if that thing stands, my daddy said he's pulling my sister out of the University of Georgia if they integrate, blah, blah, blah. And that was when they came up then. Every state in the South, not every one of them, but several of them then incorporated the Confederate flag in with their state flag, you know, as a symbol of the same thing Democrats are doing today. Democrats then, who were the solid South, they put the Confederate flag on there as a symbol of resistance. The same thing the Democrats are doing today with the Republican administration in Washington. Resistance, resist, whatever we can do, try to throw them out, get rid of them. The Democrats, this is their legacy. This is what they've always done, and they did it then, and they're still doing it today. The African American community, I see their point. I really do. You know, but on the other hand, I also look at these things is that they are an absolute work of art. A lot of them are. And, you know, and you went to the Vatican Museum and you saw all these things in there. A lot of those things were stolen during conquest, wars, whatever. But they were priceless pieces of art. You know, so I mean, you know, it's just, you know, folks, we just really need to get real. There's more things we need to be concerned about than this kind of stuff.
All right, Justin.
So I go a different way and worry about the governance aspect of it. You know, to me, it's another example of the state of Louisiana coming in and telling local governments what they can and can't do. And thank goodness, because in the original bill, the part about having a local election was not originally included.
Yeah.
Right? And so thank goodness they at least amended the bill to do that, to say it's a local vote and not the state of Louisiana coming in and saying you can and can't put something up to memorialize anything you want, whatever the community wants to do, right? And so I read the white supremacy comments by Representative Bowie, and you know, this is the same guy who, when you talk about charter schools, he talks about how it's a great experiment and compares it to Tuskegee. And I mean, this guy, everything I've ever heard, he's off his rocker.
Yeah. And
so I can't imagine that the white supremacy thing holds a lot of water. Mm-hmm. I think that, so one question I do have is, do we have to have an election to put something up now?
That is
that's a great question.
I mean, you know, if we have to have an election to put something down, do we have to have an election to put something up?
Yeah, because what if the community doesn't support it? I mean, do we not already have that in a way, though? Because if you have elected a council, I mean, I guess depending on what it is, I don't know.
I agree. So look at the New Orleans City Council. They voted to take it down, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
the people that are protesting around the monuments, they all have great points and they all feel very passionately about this. But what they don't know now is who to petition to get this issue addressed. Do you think if LCG, if the city parish council voted on this, do you think Alfred Mouton would stay up or come down?
Oh, stay up for sure.
And isn't that just a reflection of the community?
I think it absolutely
is. And the state legislature passes 2-1. I think that's probably a pretty fair reflection of the voters of the state of Louisiana, that they want their representatives to vote to maintain this. So, what we're doing with this bill is we're removing the decision-making farther and farther away from the people, as opposed to keeping your locally elected officials more accountable.
Where do you put, we have to wrap up with this topic, but one thing that came up when Bernie and I were talking about this morning is, okay, if you legitimately think, okay, this is a symbol, y'all are white supremacists that want this, etc., where do you put plantations that bring millions in tourism dollars, probably an even more obvious depiction of this,
representation of what happened,
and a lot of them you can go to where you can walk into the slave quarters as well as the big house, as well. Do you see anything ever happening with that?
Well, no, those are privately owned.
Most of them anyway. They are
they
privately owned. Yes,
the vast majority of them
not on registries though.
Well, they can be on the registry, but they're still privately owned.
Absolutely.
But do they get federal funding for that? For upkeep and maintenance? That's what I'm wondering.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Probably not. But I understand that there was an attorney in town who got federally funding to put his house on some kind of a registry that way. So who knows?
What's is it Laura Plantation in Vacherie that the owner, it's a private owner, wants to convert it into a slave museum? I think that's...
I do kind of remember that.
I think the real argument here is that it's publicly maintained grounds, and so is the only one left is generally then.
Yes,
that's the big one. And it's sort of funny to hear how people, because we know what it is. I mean, to me, growing up, that's where you met people from Mardi Gras.
It's Lee Circle.
I mean, it's Lee Circle.
That's right.
I'm never going to call it. It has a real name.
Well, it was named something before it was Lee Circle.
It has another name, but no one's ever going to...
Morzan Airport.
Yeah, no one's ever going to call that. All right,
Field, sir.
Let's get a quick break in here. We're back with more Wingin' It Wednesday. Justin Centanni sitting in for Carol Ross. Warren Caudle here as always. We're back after this.
It's where the railroad...
Wingin' It Wednesday continues right here in KPEL.
He go get the coffee whenever we have a...
Here is one way. I never thought I'd say this. Warren, you are just like my wife in one way. We might sit at an airport for 4 hours waiting for a plane, and they will say, Group 2, go ahead and board. And Sarah will say, I got to go to the bathroom now. But we've been sitting here for 4 hours, and now is the time.
That's a good woman.
Anyway, she sure is. She puts up with me. Hey, let's go to the phone calls. Bernie, you have somebody lined up?
All right, this is Garrett. He has a comment about soldiers, I believe.
All right, Garrett, go ahead.
I just want to toss this around that Congress recognizes Confederate soldiers as U.S. veterans. I'm wondering what people's opinions are as far as they're going to statues with that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
That recognition of them as a veteran. Warren.
Oh.
Man.
What did Abraham Lincoln say? Malice towards none, charity towards all, when he was talking about the reunification and whatever, and unfortunately he was killed before any of that got started, and God only knows what would have happened. That I will say this, that Reconstruction probably was as rough on the South as the war itself was, and
or maybe more.
It could
in some
be,
ways.
in some ways.
In some ways, economically.
That. Yeah, they did recognize. They did, and but I'm still going. But I see both sides of the thing. I honestly do. Is that I know that in the state of Tennessee, back in the 70s, the state was still paying some Civil War. What do you call those?
Widows.
Yeah, widows funds. And some of those little 16-year-old girls that married those 80-year-olds.
Yeah. In fact, it wasn't but within the last 10 years that the final one died.
And one of them was not Anna Nicole Smith.
Hey, let's take a couple more calls on that note.
Let's go.
Good morning, you're on with Rob and Bernie, Wingin' It Wednesday. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is Jeremy from Lafayette. About the Confederate monuments in New Orleans, I do have a little bit of skin in the game. My wife's from New Orleans, and she still has family that lives down there. And my whole point is, get rid of all the feelings about racism and all this stuff. The fact of the matter is you don't worry about tearing down monuments when your streets are caving in, they're filthy, there's homeless people on every corner, and you're going tit for tat for the crime rate with Chicago. There are other things New Orleans needs to, besides taking.
Okay. All right. Thank you for
Completely
the thought.
agree.
Well, did you see the guy that's going around New Orleans and he's spray painting the name General Robert E. Lee on all the potholes to try to get Mitch to remove them?
You know,
I have not seen that.
It's got to work better than what they're doing now.
I saw where there was one city where the people out there, they're actually planting flowers in the potholes.
Yes.
You know, let's take one more call, then we need to move on.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead with your comment.
Yeah, well, just a few years ago, there were people actually running around saying that the Holocaust didn't happen. And what I'm afraid of is when we use this as a historical learning experience, when we start removing all these monuments, we start forgetting what really happened. And I think the statues should not be a representation, not of all the bad things or glorifying maybe a wrong choice that someone made, but we need to look at it from a learning standpoint. This is a part of our history, bottom line. And we had brothers fighting brothers, fathers, fighting
sons
children
in some cases.
instances.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just about slavery. There were other things that were a part of the Civil War. They were fighting government, which is what we're doing now. So I think we need to really look at this as a way that we can have an open discussion. We're losing our history, not just in Louisiana, but in our country. Kids don't understand why they even say the pledge these days.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for
Good
those
comments.
thoughts.
So what she's saying basically is, she'd rather say, look at him up there. He was an idiot. Yeah, she wants that to happen, I guess.
Well, and
it makes sense,
the
though.
question of the discussion of it,
It is kind of weird that we're having this discussion right now where many a scholar think that at this moment in our history, we're the closest we've been to a civil war since the Civil War.
Because
I don't know
of what she was talking about, too, fighting government, states' rights issues.
The resistance, yeah. All right, well, let's get into a quick break. Wingin' It Wednesday brought to you by Service Chevrolet Cadillac. Any other day of the week, you can go to 1212 Ambassador Caffrey or 1214 Ambassador Caffrey.
Yes.
But if you drive by there right now, you're going to think they're shut down because all their beautiful vehicles are over at Cajun Field for the car show. It's going on through this weekend. You can go see all the cars you want to see, sit in the mall, even drive some. Hey, financing is on site. They even have supplier pricing on many that are on site. Some leftover 2016s over there on site.
And you're going to save on that.
You're going to save. Go and see our friends. Hey, Dean and Rhonda, I know they're out there. They're probably wearing shorts today because it's going to be a hot one out there, but the deals are hot as well.
It doesn't matter. Go out there, look. They've got this lovely air-conditioned tent. They're going to treat you to a little ice cream if you want, a little water, Don't
make ice cream promises if it's not there. I'll go buy another car.
Okay.
All right, 7:38. We're back to talk about what's going on in Washington. Is it a White House in crisis, as some are reporting?
I am really curious to see what Warren is going to say about these two Trump issues this week. It should be very interesting.
We're going to come back with more Wingin' It Wednesday after this.
Yeah.
Back to Wingin' It Wednesday. Our panelists today, Warren Caudle, and in for Carol Ross, Justin Centanni. Just a little bit deeper of a voice, but not nearly as sexy as Carol's voice.
Oh, sorry, buddy.
Not better looking either. Boy, do I have a face for radio.
And he's given all that up. All right, hey, so this morning, probably about a half an hour ago, Russian President Vladimir Putin.
Oh, Putin.
He's involved now.
Of course he is.
Putin says he's going to give...
Did he have his shirt on or off when he made the comment?
Just for the sake of the story, I'm going to say it was off.
Okay.
He said he's going to give a transcript of that meeting with the Russian diplomats from last week to Congress himself.
Okay, and...
He's just got to give it to him.
They identified that Israel was the source of the information.
Was the source of the info.
And Israel has said, we're still going to give you info.
We're one of our best allies, et cetera.
So, but
right.
I don't know. Is
Justin,
it wrong? Is it not wrong?
If you're accused of having an affair with your secretary, would you not be seen at the movies with her?
I probably would not.
Yes. I mean, I don't know. I don't know that this really matters. And I know that, what has come out of the Trump administration in the White House is that he has full authority to talk about whatever he wants to as the president. You do kind of worry, does it damage future relationships? Obviously, Israel says, hey, we're going to continue working with them, but some other European allies kind of hinted yesterday that they might be a little bit more cautious. What does it mean for the future?
Boy, I don't know what kind of crazy world I'm living in where the Russian president they're still an adversary, right?
Right.
I didn't miss that
there
part.
There are still sanctions.
That's what I thought. They're still aligned with Syria and Iran.
Yes,
and, okay.
We hold the hand that holds us down.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and say that the president was certainly well within his rights to divulge whatever he divulged. I mean, he's the president of the United States. I believe, to my knowledge, he's the only person in America that can unilaterally declassify information. Correct?
That's correct.
All
yes.
right. So it may not have been wise, but it was definitely legal on that particular thing. I think if this continues, maybe Israel's not going to stop working with us, but at the same time, I don't know that Israel has a whole lot of friends over in that part of the world anyway.
I got friends in low
That's right.
places.
So I mean, wait, and it's definitely not Russia.
Yeah.
They're definitely not friends with Russia.
No.
So I honestly don't know. I'm as surprised every 20 minutes some turn takes in this story.
We are told that the conversation all had to do with the laptop ban, which we had heard was going to be coming anyway. We know that there were some U.S. officials going to Brussels to talk to the EU folks about, hey, we're going to put the same ban we've had in place from some Middle Eastern countries and Africa into place in Europe. Warren, what does this mean?
A little clarification. And the fine gentleman said the president's the only one who can declassify information. That is not correct. There are several
But he called
levels.
You a fine gentleman.
There are several levels and different people have got the authority to classify and declassify, and there's a procedure you go through.
Does he have the highest authority?
Of
or
course
no?
he does.
I think it was the only one that can do it unilaterally, right?
No. I mean, it depends. It depends on where it came from, what it's for, and all kind of such stuff. And that, this thing about is Russia our friend, Russia our enemy? What makes them an enemy? This is what I don't understand. I'm gonna go back a few years ago. Is that I still say that when we invaded Iraq, we should have included the Russians. We've got the same enemy, and that's what people don't understand. Chechnya is nothing in the world but a breakaway republic inside the boundaries of Russia who want to make that into an Islamic fundamentalist government. They're basically at a civil war, and they have been now for years. And George W. Bush, one of my least favorite people in the whole world, who made the statement one time that Putin needs to negotiate with those people. And Putin came back with the smartest thing I ever heard. He said, well, Bush, why don't you negotiate with bin Laden? You call a bastard to the White House and y'all sit down and have coffee and tea and talk your problems over. We got the same problems. And talking about classified information and intelligence and all. You know how we do YouTube? I mean, I used to be the Blackbird flights and all. You know how we do those things now? They were super secret. We would try to shoot down theirs. They'd try to shoot down ours. What we do today is we file a flight plan.
I know. It's bizarre. It's bizarre the way we do things. You're right.
No, it's not bizarre. It just makes sense. We file a flight plan, and they do the same thing. They've got those planes, the spy planes that fly over. But the difference is we file a flight plan, but we share the data. Whatever we photograph going across Russia, we give them a copy of it. Whatever they photograph coming across the United States, they give us a copy of it. And this stuff is so blown out of proportion. My point is, what information did he share with the guy, quote, in Russia that was so highly classified and all this and what was it? Nobody knows.
We may soon,
but I doubt if you will.
Yeah.
And that this thing, it's all about the mainstream media is doing everything they can to try to bring down the Trump administration and bring down the conservatives in this country. Everything. The White House is in crisis. It is. No, the crisis is the mainstream media is trying to make everybody out here think that Trump is the enemy. Trump is your enemy. You're stupid if you voted for him. Aren't you ashamed of yourself? Hell no. I'm ashamed of the fact that you think I'm stupid enough to believe the stuff that you put out in your newspapers and on your television, which is why I have not watched ABC, CBS, NBC in decades and will not.
Okay.
That's all I got to say about that as far as Gump was
All right. Justin, top that.
That's one less thing. No, I agree with him. It's difficult to look at the newspaper and figure out, it's the boy who cried wolf syndrome, right? Because if Chuck Schumer, every time he's on the television, says
he's been on every day multiple times.
The sky is falling and
everybody's going to die.
And the world is going to end and everyone's going to die. Then at some point when he's actually got a point to make where the world's going to end and everybody's going to die, I'm going to look at him and go, dude, you said that yesterday. You said that you said that a week ago. You said it 2 weeks ago. I don't know when I can't listen to you anymore.
The pastor that prepares for the end of the world about once every 3 years and spends all the money to prepare. And it comes and goes.
But he gets more money.
But he does.
That's right.
You're right.
That's right.
He does.
Until one day he drinks everybody drinks the Kool-Aid, and then the party's over, right?
All right. We're going to wrap up here shortly. We have about 4 minutes left of Wingin' It Wednesday. I'm curious. We know this latest thing that happened with Comey, that he apparently wrote some personal memos, took notes on his meetings with Trump, phone calls with Trump, and now it seems like it's another leak that has come out to say that to sum it up, kind of let this Flynn thing go. When are you going to wise up and let this Flynn thing go? This hasn't come from Comey. So to me, Comey, at this point, what do you have to lose? If this really happened, why is it not you that's going out there and saying this is what happened? It's coming from sources, and it seems like there are more and more enemies of Trump inside his own White House, inside some of these departments, Warren. Is there really any way to get do you have a staff meeting and say, all right, anyone who's not behind me, you can go ahead and go? No one's going to raise their hand.
No, so what you do is what Richard Nixon did. Wherever he got reelected, went in and called a cabinet member, and he said, I want everybody's resignation in here by noon. And they were all just stunned. And so they handed in their resignations, and he turned around and hired back the ones that he wanted and whatever. What Trump needs to do this morning is fire James Clapper. That's the first thing he needs to do. He should have already fired him. The man is a pathological liar. He has an agenda. He's been on television stations trying to undermine Trump. He said so, and the man needs to go. Does he have enemies in the White House? Of course he does on that staff. You've always got those kind of people. You've got to try to weed them out. But on Comey, who in this world will believe anything that man says? After what we've gone through over the last year or so, please tell me, you're going to write a memo? That's going to be the same memo that Dan Rather had about George W. Bush and his pay records with the National Guard? Guess what? I've got a printer, and I can print. I can write memos. At one time, I even had some White House stationery.
You are so entertaining.
Who would believe that man? Who? Who let the lies out? Who?
All right, Justin, any end in sight for these leaks?
No. Is that an easy enough answer? I mean, no, it's not going to end. And I think Representative Chaffetz last night or yesterday afternoon sent a letter to the FBI saying, give all of the memorandums to me. And maybe this was Director Comey's strategy from the beginning of, I'm not going to go out there and talk about it, but as soon as Congress finds out that there are these written documents, written records of my meetings with the president, then they're going to subpoena them. I think Representative Chaffetz said that I've got my subpoena pin ready. Mm-hmm. And fortunately, I think you're probably going to have at least some kind of inquiry from Congress to get all of the documentation of everything and try to exonerate the president or exonerate Director Comey or whatever it is.
Okay.
I'll bet you they don't get them.
Well, maybe they won't, but I'll tell you this too. I was talking to somebody last week when the president fired Comey, and I said, this was a bold move, because when you start firing somebody that may or may not be investigating you, it can go any number of different ways, mm-hmm. and there's really no controlling the direction. And so I think the president's going to have to really work very hard to navigate this and come out on the other end
All right, we have about a minute left. Bernie and I, we are doing the After the Show all this week for Carol, who's out. And one of the questions we brought up yesterday was, if you were president, if we made you president for 5 minutes, you had one duty, though. You had to pick the next head of the FBI, Warren. Who would your pick be?
Oh, I have no earthly idea. I know who I wouldn't pick, but
we gathered that.
But I really don't know, because I'd probably go back and pick my second cousin who retired from the FBI.
There you go. I like that.
Justin.
Mark Garber.
Mark Garber. All right, then. Mark Garber. Condoleezza Rice, by the way, yesterday was the most popular answer we got. Oh, and Captain Clay Higgins.
Yeah, and Clay Higgins.
Well, it's about as much as I know, right? I mean, I know local law enforcement. I don't know anybody at the national level.
All right, Wingin It Wednesday, every Wednesday in the 7 o'clock hour. Carol will be back next week. Justin, thanks for
that was
gracing
great.
us with your presence.
Thank you for having me, guys. It was fun.
That
Great
was a blast.
All right, it's 7:54 now. We have more coming up after the top of the hour. Wingin It Wednesday continues. Wingin It Wednesday is wrapped up. The show continues.
I gotta go to work.
And we have Jim Donelon, the insurance commissioner, coming up.
Later.